I know, okay, thank you. We will, well now, there's no need for introduction. KMUZ, please go, let's go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tim Patterson. I'm the board president at KMUZ, and this is how we start our hour, every hour, on the hour, pretty much. This is community radio for the Mid-Willamette Valley, KMUZ Turner, 100.7 and 88.5 FM. Also KTUP and KMWV Dallas, 98.3 HD2. And we stream it around our big, blue, beautiful planet at KMUZ.org. And we also have underwriting announcements, and I've got one just for you. Support for KMUZ comes from Salem Realty Media, providing professional real estate photography, videography, aerial drone services, and 3D floor plans to help agents showcase their listings. With a focus on quality, fast turnaround, and exceptional service, Salem Realty Media ensures that homes are presented at their best. As a proud supporter of community radio, Salem Realty Media values the connections that make the Willamette Valley a great place to live and work. More information can be found at salemrealtymedia.com.
And right after that, there's theme music for Willamette Wake Up, and that goes through, and I say, well, good morning, and welcome to Willamette Wake Up on KMUZ Community Radio. KMUZ broadcasts at 88.5 and 100.7 FM, streams at kmuz.org, and from a KMUZ radio app for your iPhone or Android phone. Willamette Wake Up is our weekday local public affairs show that airs Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. And you can hear the whole show again for up to 14 days, or just the feature interviews produced by Willamette Wake Up as a podcast. You just need to visit kmuz.org/shows and then click on the Willamette Wake Up icon and look for the podcast button. And please follow us on Facebook for upcoming programs. I'm your host for this morning, Brian Gingerich. And today on Willamette Wake Up, we hear about the history and mission of KMUZ, the Salem area's first community radio station. I'll be talking with KMUZ volunteers Tim Patterson, who is the founding board member and current board president, Melanie Zermer, executive producer of Willamette Wake Up, and Jane Titchenal, host of Girlypop Politics. Willamette Wake Up's newest program segment, but first our public meetings calendar.
Happening today, April 9th, in the City of Salem Parks and Rec Advisory Board at 1 p.m. at the City Operations Building, 1457 23rd Street Southeast. The South Gateway Neighbors Association is meeting at 6:30 tonight at Baxter Community Hall, 1780 Baxter Road Southeast. The Highland Neighborhood Association meeting is at 6:30 this evening at Center 50 Plus. In the City of Kaiser, the Volunteer Coordinating Committee is meeting tonight at 6 p.m. at the Kaiser Civic Center. In Silverton, City Charter Updates Review Task Force happening at 5:30 at City Hall, located at 410 North Water Street. In Dallas, the Planning Commission is happening at 6 p.m. at City Hall at 187 Southeast Court Street. For more information about any of these meetings or to find upcoming ones, visit your city's website.
And right after the community meetings calendar, I do the weather, and it's going to be sunny and 72 degrees today, but rain's coming this weekend. And currently in beautiful downtown Salem, we have sunny skies and a temperature of 55 degrees. And today, we're going to be talking with volunteers from KMUZ Radio, and some long time, some more recent. We'll share the history of Salem's first community radio station, as well as its mission and purpose and programs and services. We have in studio with us founding board member and current president of the board, Tim Patterson, and Melanie Zermer, former board member and current executive director of Willamette Wake Up. And then after the break, we'll drill down into a couple of our signature local public affairs programs with Melanie and Jane. So let's start the interviews here. For Melanie and for Tim, how did you first learn about KMUZ and why did you get involved?
Well, let me start with that because I have the mic in my hand, and I think Jane and I will switch seats because at this point it's Tim and I. And I first heard about KMUZ from my acupuncturist, C.T. Holman. His wife was interested in getting a radio station started in the Salem area, and he said, I think Melanie might be interested in that. I said, absolutely, because I was a fan of KBOO radio up in Portland, and I even helped with their pledge drives, and I had friends who had shows on that radio station. So I thought, wow, how cool for Salem to have its own radio station, because we know that Salem is lost in the main news cycle, and we didn't have a radio station here, at least a commercial community one. So I went to a meeting that happened, I don't know, it might have been in 2009, summer of 2009 at the Grand Theater.
June 9th.
Oh, okay, it's part of your
My
story
birthday.
too. Oh, well, happy birthday in advance. And so there about 100 people showed up, said, yeah, we're interested in having a community radio station here. And so I didn't quite know how to get involved after that, but then another one of my colleagues, Steve Koch, he was a chiropractor here, he invited me to come to a group that was like trying to, like a development committee, a fundraising committee, and this is way before we were on the air. So again, this is about 2009. And that's how I got involved, and my interest has always been in, community engagement, getting people civically involved. What about you, Tim?
Well, my background is in radio. I remember listening to Wolfman Jack under the covers in the 60s when I was 10 or 11 years old. In high school, I had a friend that worked at the local station in Bend, and I used to hang out there. And I went to college at Mount Hood Community College in a radio communications program. Got my first job. I was in radio at 19 in the Dalles. I worked in the Dalles in Salem. I spent a dozen years kind of bouncing around radio in Portland. Came back to Salem for a job in the mid-90s. And in the year 2000, everything changed. The industry changed. I changed. I got out of radio, not by choice, really, but because the industry changed. I had a couple of kids. I didn't want to be a gypsy, which a lot of people I worked with, you went from here to Klamath Falls to, Phoenix to wherever the jobs were, and I wasn't willing to do that. So I changed industries, but I worked part-time in radio on occasion in Portland, and I always have a love for radio. I love getting behind the microphone and playing music and that sort of thing. And I heard a rumor, probably around 2008, I was having breakfast at the Off-Center Cafe and heard someone say, well, there's a radio station that's kind of coming to Salem. I went, really? What's that about? Anyway, kept my ear to the ground, went to the same meeting, the radio rally we had at the Grand Theater, signed up. I had no idea what I was getting into. But I did start to learn. I met Karen, I met Melanie, I met some other people that were involved, and I quickly realized they had nothing except the ability to get the license, and they had 3 years. The clock was ticking. They had to get on the air by the end of 2011. So I called a friend of mine, an engineer up in Portland, and said, hey, I described the situation. He says, well, you're in luck. He was the head engineer for 6 radio stations, Alpha Broadcasting. At that moment, they were in the process of consolidating all the stations into one location in downtown Portland. He says, we have a lot of gear. It's just going to get tossed out. So we got a lot of gear. A lot of it really didn't help us out, but we did get one thing that was critical. We got a transmitter. And we also had to, there's a long story about getting a telephone pole from Cascade High School in Turner that was by their football field. They donated that. We somehow got it hauled up to Whipper Hill, which is in south of Salem. And we got on the air by the skin of our teeth. And it was quite a process. And at that time, we'd founded a board. I was on the founding board and was on the board for 2 or 3 years. And I'll be honest, the only reason I signed up at the radio rally because I wanted to do a reggae show. And I do the reggae show. I've been doing that since day one. I do it every Monday night from 7 to 9 o'clock. So that's kind of the very short version of how KMUZ got on the air and how I got involved.
Very good, very good. Thank you for that. And another question, what are some of the high points and the low points about the early beginnings of KMUZ?
Well, I guess I can start with that. Again, I've got the mic. Thanks, Brian. The low point was really when we knew we had to get on the air August 11th, 2011. So it was in August, something like that, maybe the 17th, whatever. And we needed to raise like $16,000 or $17,000 in order to buy what we needed to get on the air, and we were getting really close. We went to a city council meeting, thinking maybe they would have some funds for us because we are going to be supporting the Salem community. And it was funny because at that meeting they had just given $200,000 to that person that runs the Queen, that steamboat on the Willamette River, because they were going to do some things. So they just appropriated $200,000 for this person, and we wanted $13,000 to support the community through news and media, and they said no to that. So that was a low point. But then a person stepped up, a couple, Bill Smaldone, Jenny Jopp, many of you may know them. They came up with the funds and they gave us a loan for that money. So that was the high point. And now trying to get everything on the air by that date was mind-blowing. We ended up having to operate out of a van. The whole thing was set up in a van just so we could get on the air. It wasn't completely finished yet, but if you can get on the air, then you could shut down for a while and really build what you needed. So we were really up against the clock, and I knew nothing about any of these things. I felt really lost, but I was really impressed with the enthusiasm of a small group of people to just keep going. And so the high point for me was going out into my car after my last massage client of the day, turning on my car radio and hearing KMUZ on the air. What about you, Tim?
So to me, one of the high points, we'd been working on this for a while, months and months, and I'm not sure how Dave Hammett came into the picture, but Dave was, we wouldn't be on the air today if not for Dave, a gentleman who came to us and offered to volunteer. He'd spent years in community and public radio in Alaska, as well as Astoria. He'd moved to Salem, heard about us, volunteered. And he knew how to deal with the FCC. He knew engineers that worked on things, and he was the one that guided us through so much of that. We put him on the board. He was with the station for 10 years or so. He had some health issues. He stepped aside. He's still around. He's just not involved in the station. But that was a high point to have him involved to kind of guide us through all of this. I really didn't have a clue because I'd never done community radio. I didn't deal with engineers. I didn't deal with the FCC. So it was great to have him. That was really kind of one of the, to me, the high points of being able to get to where we are today.
Very good. And KMUZ, you mentioned community radio. And would you explain, Tim, what the difference is? What is community versus commercial versus public radio?
Well, having spent decades in commercial radio sells commercials, and you know when you're playing music or talk or whatever, you pay for it by selling commercials to local businesses and stuff. Public radio is funded, I believe, partly from government, and
It used to be.
yeah, maybe not now. And maybe that'll return, who knows. But they also get funding from grants and underwriters and that sort of thing. Community radio is usually volunteer run completely, not every station, of course. Some stations raising up money to actually hire people. We haven't gotten to that point. But our funding is really three legs of the stool. One is the listeners. We do pledge drives 3 to 4 times a year. Underwriters, businesses who give money to we air announcements like the one we just heard. And sometimes grants. We have gotten grants over the years to help us get capital pledge drives or capital fundraising and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the difference between community and commercial and public radio.
Very good, thank you. And Melanie, what's KMUZ's mission and purpose?
Oh, here we go.
No, I know the mission. I know the mission by heart. To celebrate the people, culture, and civic life of the Mid-Willamette Valley. We really want to honor the celebrate part, because so much news we hear is negative. It's always trying to throw somebody down as opposed to uplift. So our mission is more about uplifting. Although we cover stories that aren't always so pleasant. There's some unpleasant things going on right now at a national level, and so we will take that and say, well, how is it playing out here in the Mid-Willamette Valley? One of the things I wanted to emphasize that Tim mentioned about community radio is by our FCC license standards, we have to show that we are covering issues that happen right here. It has to be hyper-local. And so I have to prepare a quarterly report for the FCC to show that we do just that. And this Willamette Wake Up show that you're getting a taste of right here is primarily why we are on the air. Primarily why we are on the air. And the purpose is really to share the views and the communities that aren't so heavily shown in commercial stations. So we try to showcase more what's happening to some of our marginalized communities, people who don't have as strong of a voice in the community space. So that's our purpose, and our mission, again, is to celebrate the people, the culture, and the civic life of the Mid-Willamette Valley.
Very good. And Tim, you touched on a little bit about how KMUZ is funded. If you want to go in more depth, you can do that. And what's the annual budget for KMUZ?
The annual budget is between about $50,000 and $70,000.
Actually, let's talk about the monthly budget. What's
The monthly budget,
monthly-
well, it's $4,000 to $5,000 a month, $6,000. Depends. So we have some quarterly bills that come due. We pay for things like rent, of course. We are now a new partner with CC Media. We're in their location. We also have to pay licensing fees for music that we play, streaming fees. We have to pay website fees. We have to pay engineers on the basis of when we need them, that sort of thing. So all the costs that go into that adds up to between $4,000 and $6,000 a month.
Yes. And that's all by donations, isn't it?
All by donations, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So tell us about some of the programming, like music, entertainment, all of those things.
What I like to tell people about KMUZ is if you like what you hear now, you might not in 2 hours. If you don't like what you hear now, you might like something in 2 hours. Because we play music, we play public affairs. About a year and a half ago, we started running programs from what we call PRX, Public Radio Exchange, and that was because we found out we were playing a lot of music basically from a jukebox, and we didn't really want to do so much of that. We wanted to have more live and local, or more different variety of programs, a lot of public affairs, there's talk programs. It's funny, a lot of the programs I don't listen to because I just can't, but what programs do you like, Melanie?
Yeah, well, I primarily got involved in KMUZ because I'm interested in civic engagement and public affairs. So the programs that I really enjoy listening to are Word Up. It's a program on Saturdays at 6 o'clock with Liz Cruz, and she talks to people about books and words. And has a very interesting approach to talking to people. And again, we are talking to people who live right here in the community, so we get to know our neighbors. Positivity with Priscilla has a show Sundays at 1, where she just talks about, she'll talk like you here in the community. She'll bring you on, and you might think, gosh, I'm not really that interesting of a person, but she has a way to pull out information and stories from people that make everybody interesting, no matter what their backgrounds, lives were like. And another one, we cover some business issues. There's a couple of women that host a show called Mid-Willamette Valley Business Matters, airs Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and they'll talk to a lot of different business owners and also nonprofits. And by the way, not only do we serve the Salem area, we also serve Monmouth, Independence, Dallas. We reach out, people can hear us in Staten, almost all the way up into Mill City and as far north as Woodburn. So Kaiser is definitely one of our listeners. So in terms of the talk programming, those are just a few that I like. But there are a lot of music programs, reggae. Do you want to talk about any of the other music shows?
So one of the blocks I like to listen to is Sunday afternoons. I think it's 4 to 8. We have a couple of local music, Northwest Notes and Roots.
Local Roots.
Local Roots, yeah, Local Roots. It's nothing but local music, and that means Northwest music, Portland, Seattle, Oregon, Salem, and you'll hear stuff there that you've never heard before, and it's great stuff. It's really fun, and that's what community radio to me is about. You're going to hear stuff that you just won't hear anywhere else, and that's the value of having those types of program on the air. You get to hear stuff that's local and is really great.
Yes, and a real short anecdote. I think I was a plumber at my house, and I had the garage door open, and he saw my car, and I have a KMUZ bumper sticker. And he said, KMUZ, are you involved in that? And I said, well, yeah, with Willamette Wake Up and all that. He says, I have that on my car radio when I'm listening, because you never know what's going to come up in terms of music, in terms of talk and all that. And so I thought that was pretty cool.
It's a different beast if you've never listened to much community radio.
It's very eclectic.
And you will come across stuff you go, I don't want to hear that. We have a classical music show, symphonic music on Saturday mornings at 10, a couple hours. Great stuff. Not my cup of tea. Right. But it's kind of fun to know that it's there. So.
And there's opera, and there's all kinds of, exactly. Melanie, what are some of the other services that KMUZ offers?
Yeah, well, I think our public service announcement list is pretty important. So if people reach out to us and say we're having an event that supports a nonprofit, or a city has some information it's trying to get out to people, we can help amplify other people's stuff. And so public service announcements, and you're going to hear a couple of those during the break today as an example. Again, our underwriting is where local businesses and local nonprofits, for a small contribution, can get the word out about them. Like this program brought to you in part by Be Black Foundation, elevating Black voices in Salem, more at beblackfoundation.org, as an example. And so what we're starting to do is encourage people who have some extra money to support KMUZ, but maybe use it to support your favorite nonprofit. So underwriting is one of our legs of funding, and also a service to the community. And of course, on our social media, our Facebook page will also amplify other things going on in the community.
And we just had our anniversary in the new facility, like last week or so, with CC Media. Can you tell us about our partnership, Tim, with CC Media?
Yes, it's we moved in about a year ago, and the interesting thing to me is we had been looking for a place. We'd been in a location over on Division Street that just was not working out for us as well. The studios itself were fine, but the location wasn't great, and so people didn't want to come over there. And we got to talking and looked at a couple of places, and it turns out CC Media, which moved into their location 8 or 10 years ago, maybe
I think
not
so.
that.
Yeah.
They have the east wing of that was unused, and they had built a radio station there several years ago for something that just didn't happen. There's a longer story there, but we looked at it and went, you mean you already have a radio station built? We just have to come over here and switch it over, to get the engineers involved. We looked at it, and it was reasonable, and so we said, yeah, so that was a great move. CC Media is a great partner, because they have a lot of the same goals that we do. We are completely independent from them, but we work together in the sense that I think they're recording this, and they can air this on their YouTube channels and cable channels, and we can air the audio on KMUZ. So there's a great partnership. Also, that gives us opportunity to the local emergency services to come in and immediately use the airways we have to tell local people about what's going on if there's an emergency that arises. So it's a great partnership, and I'm really glad we're there, and it's been pretty smooth, really.
Good. And we're just about ready to wrap up this, the history and the information about KMUZ. What about their past successes and challenges going forward? What's up with that?
Well, the biggest challenge always is just funding. Right. We have pledge drives every 4 months. I think this year we're experimenting with once per season, so we're actually doing 4 this year, but they're going to be a day shorter, and we'll just see how that works out. And we have to keep actively looking for new underwriters, or to get previous underwriters to help support the station, and these come and go. But and that's really our biggest challenge as far as keeping the station going. And we have a lot of volunteers that come and go as well. Some have been with us since the very beginning. Others, move on for whatever reason. So we're always looking for new volunteers. Jane's a new volunteer. We're glad to have you. So there's just a lot of challenges logistically and programming. We have to have people that be there. We have a volunteer that works 40 to 50 hours a week to keep things going. He's retired, but this is his passion, so he does it. He makes things happen. We have those kinds of people. So.
Just real quick, I think a couple of our successes is about maybe 7 years ago, we increased our frequency. So you can hear us on both 88.5, the original frequency, and 100.7 FM. And so that signal made us stronger. We could reach more people in Salem more consistently. So that was a big success. And also early on, we were on the air for like 7 months, and we got that Statesman Journal Award Best Radio Station of the Year. And we got that 2 years in a row, and then they retired that category. And then we also got an award from the Oregon Education Association, because at that time we had a person doing fabulous programming about education for special needs kids in the district. So those were a couple of early successes.
And you are listening to Willamette Wake Up on KMUZ 88.5 and 100.7. Stay tuned, because after the break, we're going to speak with Melanie and Jane about programming of KMUZ.
The Oregon Garden welcomes the community to its 2026 Earth Day celebration on Saturday, April 18th from 10 to 4 p.m. Admission is free that day. The gardens are located in Silverton at 879 West Main Street. Visit with environmentally conscious organizations and stroll through the gardens. Learn more at OregonGarden.org.
You're just doing one. Okay.
Yeah, there's a second one.
Yeah, do a second one, yeah.
And a second one. Here we go. The Friends of Salem Library is hosting the Spring Book Sale from Friday, April 17th through Sunday, April 19th at the Salem Public Library. Get times and more information on Facebook. Search for Friends of Salem Library.
And we're back with Melanie Zermer and Jane Titchenal. And let's see, let's talk about the forum, the program, the forum. Can you tell us about that, Melanie?
Yeah, before the break, I talked about the importance of showcasing what's happening here locally. And one of the first programs that I put together back in 2012 was a program called The Forum, because we didn't have a lot of content, but we knew that there's a lot of content out there that not everybody had access to. And one of the first places I went was to Salem City Club. And I said, can we use the content and put it on our radio station? And they said, sure. They were already airing it on CC Media. So my idea was to go out into the community and record live presentations and panels and forums that if you weren't there live, you wouldn't have been able to hear otherwise. And so that was the idea of the show, and it's been going since the beginning. But my very first forum was the most exciting thing for me in the world. It happened at Willamette University, and Dolores Huertas was the speaker. Remember, she was part of the farm workers union. And so I was so excited. And so I had my little recorder. I didn't really know how to use it, but CC Media was there. And I said, I have permission to record this. And I was talking to Sohai, I think her name was at the time. And I said, can I just like plug into your board and maybe get this? And she's looking at me going, okay. She didn't know me from Adam, but she was so kind. So she plugged in my little recorder, and that was my first show. Dolores Huertas, very proud of that. And so the forum's been going on every week. It airs Friday at noon, and it repeats Sunday at 8 a.m. Now, this particular weekend, you'll hear more about that at the end. So it's about the town hall that happened with our Salem mayoral and council candidates. So I won't go into that any further. But then the Willamette Wake Up. You want me to talk about that?
Absolutely. Talk about, and why are these two programs important?
Right. Again, it really meets the mission of celebrating the people, culture, and civic life of the mid-Willamette Valley. It's hyper-local. It really pertains to us. It's about us, by us, and for us. So that's why I think these programs are important.
And what about Willamette Wake Up? What's the evolution of that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I got ahead of myself.
Yeah,
okay. Well, we knew that we needed some sort of a signature weekday public affairs show, local. That's just what you need to do as a community radio station. So Dave Hammock, who was mentioned earlier, he was really nudging for that. And a man named Ken Adams, who is now our operations manager that Tim talked about earlier, who puts in 40 to 50 hours a week, he decided, okay, well, I'll anchor 8 to 9 Monday through Friday. by himself. And he wasn't really sure what he was going to do. He was just pulling stories from the internet, national news. And it's like, no, this has to be local news. So I can't quite remember how I all got involved, but I just kept pulling different people in and finding out what their passion is. Willamette Wake Up, as much as I want it to be like all civic oriented, like what's happening in our local governments, not everybody had that passion. So I would take whatever passion someone had who had commitment and basic responsibility, accountability. And Tom Ellis, who is part of your membership, he's been doing a program on Willamette Wake Up called Elephant in the Room for many years. Climate change, thank you, Tom. And it's sponsored by 350 Salem. So again, we're amplifying the voice of a community group that might not get enough airplay. So he's been doing that program for a long time. We have shows that cover a lot of natural resources. There's Conservation Spotlight, which highlights the work that soil, water, and conservation districts are doing. A show called Keeping Oregon, Oregon, which focuses on our land use laws and how they protect farmland and the kind of challenges they're up against these days to protect farmland. We have a show on labor called Holla for Labor, hosted by the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists. We have a program that highlights Black culture, businesses, and community in Salem. And it's really important because there's so few Black people here, yet they feel like they really need to have their own community to feel a part of the bigger community. So we have a show called Willamette Block Party, which showcases Ray White and Allie Saunders, that talks about these very things and the kind of work that Be Black Foundation is doing to create more Black community here. We do cover civic issues. I try to make sure we're covering local elections, again, by amplifying other people's works. The League of Oregon, the League of Women Voters, their interviews air on our radio station. And I'm really excited to showcase Jane Titchenal, because she's very interested in Kaiser and both nonprofit organizations and what's happening in the city of Kaiser. And so I guess I'd like to turn it over to Jane. Do you have any questions for Jane?
Well, before we do that, I'd like to say, if Ken Adams works 40 to 50 hours, probably Melanie Zermer works second to that in putting... But she puts in many hours for producing Willamette Wake Up, and it's just amazing the job that you do, and I really appreciate that. So let's go to Jane Titchenal. Tell us how and why you got involved with Willamette Wake Up and KMUZ.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited to be here. I first heard of KMUZ a couple of years ago now, maybe a little over a year ago, when I ran into Melanie at a school board kickoff event. And we just got to chatting, and eventually we circled back, and I recently started getting into politics relatively recently, within the last 3 years, and it started with the school board. I have a high school son, and so these budget cuts, affect my family, affect lots of families that I know. And so I started to post online about the information that I was learning about when I was going to the school board meetings, seeing that there wasn't many people there, and this is really important information that we have to know. It's going to affect thousands, right? And thousands of people in our district. And I thought, I need other parents to know this. I need other people to understand. And so I've just been, as I continue to grow and learn myself, just how can I break down barriers for like the average everyday working person to understand? These are really complex topics, and you can get kind of lost in the sauce a little bit, but regardless, I think if you can break it down into simple terms enough that people really understand why they should care about this, I'm passionate about that, and I'm so grateful to Melanie and the opportunity to have Girlypop Politics showcase some of that work.
Well, in fact, I can say that today we re-aired your Girlypop Politics story from last week. And so if you want to go to WillametteWakeUp.com and check out that .org, that .org, you can check out that today's episode. But thank you, Jane. And that's going to do it for us today on Willamette Wake Up. And thank you for listening. Tomorrow, Oregon Humanities, The Detour, talks with Colin McCann about using personal storytelling to build empathy between young people. And then listen to 5 students at Adrian C. Nelson High School in Happy Valley who participated in a storytelling workshop. That's tomorrow on Willamette Wake Up. And this week on the forum, meet the candidates for Salem City Council and Salem Mayor. This 2-part forum is a recording from a town hall hosted by the Salem Reporter and recorded by Capital Community Media on March 30th. Friday at noon, hear candidate Mayor Vanessa Nordyke. The incumbent Julie Hoyt chose not to participate. And on Sunday at 8 a.m., hear all 8 candidates running for city council. And coming up just in a few minutes on KMUZ, at 9 o'clock, it's a mix of public radio shows with PRX Remix. At 10 o'clock, it's Film Spotting, a program about film, including movie reviews, interviews, top 5 lists, listener feedback, and insightful film talk. At 11 o'clock, it's Storytelling with The Moth. And at noon, it's Philosophy Talk with down-to-earth, no-nonsense approach discussions of philosophical thought on everyday subjects. From 2 to 4, it's Americana Alley, which features folk, blues, Americana, jazz, and more. Americana Alley is followed by Folk Alley from 4 to 6. From 6 to 7, it's Global Village. At 7 o'clock, it's 80s Obsesso Replay. And from 8 to 11, it's Now and Then. At 11 o'clock, it's 90s Obsesso Replay. KMUZ is radio worth listening to and radio worth supporting. Learn more at kmuz.org. Have a great day. I'm Brian Gingerich, and I will see you tomorrow on the radio.
Do we have questions for them?
Hi, this is Dave. First of all, I have to compliment you. I think this is the first time you can tell you're all professionals because nobody had to tell you to hold the microphone in front of your mouth, which we usually have to do. Could you explain some about your board, how you're regulated, or how not regulated, but how you're governed by the board and how you get on the board and how that all works?
The board, it's kind of funny because I'm not as well versed on how boards work as I probably should be. As the president, I learn these things as I go, and I need to. We have 7 people on the board right now. We just welcomed a new board member last month. At the end of last year in November, we had 4 people, I think, cycle off. We have board members sign up for 3 years. At the very beginning, we would stagger them so that not everyone cycled off every 3 years. I'm currently in the middle of a 3-year term. I think it ends at the end of 2027. The positions are elected every fall, and this is my 2nd year as a board president. And I'm hoping that someone else takes the place next year because we need to get new people in there. The person we just brought on, I think is going to be a great member of the board. Daryl Jabin, who hosts a show on Oregon history, just joined the board, and he's been with the station for 6 months or so. We've had board members from outside the station that just are not in radio, they just are members of the community and that have been great contributors. Some people can last for a few years, others find out that they just have personal commitments that kind of supersede what's going on with the board. Generally speaking, our board's a working board in that we have to make sure that the programming gets on the air. We have some subcommittees and different committees like the Program Review Committee, which vets new programs that people can apply for. And so, our goal really is to keep the station legal with all the FCC requirements. And technical, we have technical requirements that have to happen. We have engineers we work with. We have things we have to face there. You've been a board member, so you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I think that one of the challenges of being on a board like this is having no staff. So we're a working board. So if you're going to be on the board, you're going to be taking on a task. It's more than just sharing your ideas and guiding policy and hiring and firing, because we have nobody to hire or fire. So I think that that's one of the challenges of being on a board. Yeah, and I was the board president for a long time, and I will share this story. And it was a kind of a downside and a way upside, because in May of 2022, we had the same board for a long time, making it through the pandemic. We were so burned out, and we felt like we were dysfunctional. We had our first in-person gathering with our volunteers in several years because of COVID, and we were supposed to have a volunteer picnic. We went to that volunteer picnic and said, this board, we're closing. We can't do this anymore. We're really sorry. If people want to step up, great. Otherwise, we're going to close down the station. The highlight is people like Tim and other people said, oh my God, we had no idea it was that hard. We will step up. So it is hard, but you can see we've been doing this. We got the license in 2008, and it's 2026, and we're still doing it. So there's a lot of commitment for this work.
I love the station, and I'm really glad I'm a part of it. So, I'll do what I can, what it takes to get more people involved and to get underwriting and to get support and get people on the air. So.
Okay, hi, I'm Lisa. And I was just wondering, Jane, how did you come up with the name Girlypop Politics? And can you tell me more about how it's grown and all that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. That's so funny. I guess I've been a little surprised. More people have been wondering about the name, maybe than I thought. But I mean, Girlypop Politics really just stems from, like, if you're online, if you're on Instagram and TikTok, girly pop is like a sign of endearment. You call, like, your friends girly pop. Like, it's like, hey pal, hey friend, but it's like kind of like that. And so again, trying to simplify language for the everyday working person, but also try to reach those younger people. We need younger people in these spaces, communicating, educating, and taking part in the community. We all work as one, and so that's kind of how the Girlypop Politics name was formed. I also worked with, like, Virginia Stapleton and Vic Schaaf with Demobrats, if you've heard of that podcast. So that's kind of where the name comes from. But your other question was, I'm sorry, just
how do you decide what goes into that program?
Yeah, I guess I'm from Kaiser, and so just trying to keep in the know of what's happening in Kaiser, what's affecting folks there, but also what is happening right now in our school district, like I mentioned before, whose voices really need to be amplified right now. What stories does the community really need to understand the impact that is happening right now or is potentially happening in the future? And so there's stories everywhere, and there's so much need for being educated and communicated. And so, yeah, I guess just seeing like what people are talking about online, again, what's going to affect our young people, our youth. Like, I'm very passionate about that. I think that's really important for our community to understand.
Can you tell them the 4 stories that you've done so far, because you're fairly new?
Yeah. So my first interview was with Mayor Kathy Clark of Kaiser. We talked about the urban growth boundary, which was really informative. I learned a lot from that conversation. I've spoken with the superintendent of Salem Kaiser School District, Superintendent Castaneda, about our district funding and our cuts, and there's some new information about that I would encourage everyone to read on. I've interviewed Becca Bonner of Radness and Sue's, and which is a nonprofit helping young people. And a recent interview with the Salem Youth Drop. It was, again, another nonprofit that was in Salem, downtown Salem, and it recently closed. And that was one of the few nonprofits that we have focused on youth work. And so, yeah, I mean, these things are really important, and what happens to our young people and their futures, it happens right now. You know, the decisions that all of us make right now is going to affect the world that we leave for them. And so, yeah, I mean, I just want to do everything I can to, you know, to help support our community.
And before the next question, I do want to let people know our Willamette Wake Up feature interviews can be found again indefinitely at willamettewakeup.kmuz.org. And you can hear the whole show again for up to 14 days by going to kmuz.org/shows. Look for Willamette Wake Up, click on that, and you'll see what I mean.
Hello, my name is Paul. So I moved here in 2004. At that time, the Statesman Journal print media covered a whole variety, and now, of course, it's a shadow because print media is not seem to be the source people go to. And so we have TikTok, you have Facebook, and all these competing medias providing information in one sort or the other. And I think the local gets lost in the shuffle, and kudos to Salem Reporter, at least putting out there. But what are the challenges you see of keeping FM radio to the forefront where people tune in? Because I certainly applaud the efforts you put into this to keep it going, because I think it's a very valuable service.
I think it's a great question, and I don't know that there's an easy answer. Radio has kind of become not as important. I just think back to when radio first came about. In fact, I do a newsletter once a month, and I try and share a fun radio fact. And back in the 40s, when we didn't have TV, radio, millions of people listened to radio. They would listen to FDR's Fireside Chats. Millions of people would tune into that. And I found out there was only 33 of them in the years he was in. I think it was 33. So in this day and age, with the media landscape so fractured, it's just incredibly fractured beyond what I could even have imagined 20 years ago. FM and AM radio will survive and can survive by being local, because their signal is local and they have to provide information and music that is local. And I think that's what community radio does the best. I think our audience is small, but it is very devoted. And it's small because that's the nature of what radio is now. There are certainly big stations that have a lot of listeners, but those are mostly corporate entities that come out of Chicago or New York or Los Angeles that play the same 200 songs that are played in all the other markets. So I think community radio and local radio has to provide information that the local listenership can use.
And the one way we keep up is we do have podcasts. People can stream our radio online. You don't need a real terrestrial radio anymore. And I think that's one way that we try to keep abreast of things happening.
Good morning. My name is George. I'd like to know more about the costs of putting music on. I suspect that it's quite expensive. How do you go about determining those costs and satisfying those rules?
If I can be clear, what costs are you referring to?
Costs that you have to pay somebody to be able to play.
So licensing
music,
fees.
Licensing fees.
Okay. I don't know the exact cost. I know that we pay like a couple $100 a month to stream our music, and that includes our licensing fees. And we also pay probably not quite as much to air the same music. And it's dependent on how many listeners you have, and we have to estimate that. And we also have to track each song that we play, and we have a software that does that feeds a report to an entity. I'm not sure what entity actually gets it. Spinatron might be the one. Every quarter, we have to submit a report to the songs that are played so that they can now break that down, and each artist gets a small portion of whatever fees arise out of that. So I don't know if that really answers your question. It's a complicated thing, to be honest. But we do pay fees for that. So roughly, yeah.
Hi, Debbie Robinson here. And one of the difficulties for some of us in my generation is hearing loss. And I love radio. I have always loved radio, but I can't hear it very well. So like today, I was using this app called Otter so that I could hear for sure everything. And most of you have amazing, immaculate enunciation, and I could hear beautifully. But I'm wondering, the things you put online, do you have subtitles available? Have you thought about us? Because there's a lot of us in this situation now, and it's very isolating. And it might be an opportunity for you guys to explore, because you would have a very loyal following if there was some way that we could hear what you're saying.
That's a great observation, and I appreciate that. That's something we should look into. It's hard when you're streaming audio to have that, but the technology has come a long way, and you drop something into YouTube, they can put closed captioning there pretty quickly. So, yeah, and that's a good point. Thank you.
Okay, if there are any more questions before we're done. Okay, if there are no more questions, I would like to express my gratitude for all four of you coming in and sharing with us the very important value of community radio for building community in our area. Let's give them a big hand, everybody.